Okay, geometry students, this is the first lesson. We're in Unit 1, Geometry Basics, and the first section is points, lines, and planes. Okay, so these are the learning targets. We're gonna name points, lines, and planes. We're gonna name segments and rays. We're gonna sketch intersections of lines and planes, and we're gonna solve real-world problems involving lines and planes. Okay, so the first example wants us to give two other names for line PQ. Line PQ is this line here that goes what appears to be vertical through this plane. So let's start with line PQ. So we can name line PQ in other ways. We can name it line Q, for example. So line Q works just fine. You can use any point, so line P. Actually, we can't use line P because line P we don't know if we're talking about this vertical line or this line that looks like it's lying on the plane. So I'm okay with us naming lines by a single vertice or a single point, but we do have to be careful about could you misinterpret that line as a different line. So we can change it up though. We could do QP. So line QP instead. The order in which you give these 2 points, it doesn't matter. So here's 2 different ways right here to name line PQ. And then as far as the plane, so it's plane R. There's different ways to name plane R. You can use any 3 points as long as they're not collinear. So let's go VST, for example. So plane VST. All right, VST. It doesn't, like I said, any 3 points on the plane will work as long as they're not in a straight line. So how about TPV? All right, so plane TPV. But yeah, you just cannot use SPT. We're going to find there's actually an infinite number of planes that go through a line. So you could, SPT is not a proper way to name the plane. They have to be non-collinear points, meaning points that don't lie on the same line. All right. B says name 3 points that are collinear. So let's do that first. 3 points that are collinear. We just talked about SPT. So points SPT are collinear. And then name 4 points that are coplanar. Coplanar means they'll lie on the same plane. So let's do VSPT. VSPT would be coplanar, lying on the same plane. And I've got sort of a quick definition next to both of them if that helps you. Okay, next is example 2. It says give another name for line segment GH. So this little line on the top means segment now. Notice it does not have the arrows. So when you don't have the arrows, that's a line segment. All right, so GH, we can name that different ways. Let's go with HJ. All right, so HJ, line segment over top of it. Or we could do JG. All right, so any 2 points that lie on that line will work as long as they're not the same point, and we do want to put the correct symbol over top of it. All right. Part B, let's name all the rays with endpoint J. So endpoint J, we're going to name those rays as like this, JE, for example. So you always start with the endpoint, and you go away from that. So starting at J, we're going away from J through E. So that's the way we read this. So let's do JF now. JF, you're starting at J, and you're going through F. And then let's do JG. So you're starting at J and you're going through G. And let's do JH would be the other one. JH. You're starting at J and you're going through H. Okay, let's do some sketches here. We're going to sketch a plane and a line that is in the plane. So to sketch a plane, you just basically make a parallelogram. All right. Now I know it's hard to draw 2-dimensional objects on 3-dimensional surfaces here, or visualize it. But here you go. You got a plane. It looks like a parallelogram, and then a line that's in the plane, just put it on an angle so that the line doesn't go off the parallelogram at all, and that will be good enough. Here's a plane and a line that's on the plane. You can name them if you want, but it didn't say to, so that's good enough. Part B says sketch a plane and a line that does not intersect the plane. So we're going to put our plane here, and we're going to try to draw a line that would be parallel to the plane, above the plane, for example. All right, and then C, sketch a plane and a line that intersects the plane at one point. So this time we're going to draw our parallelogram or our plane, and we're going to come up with a line, and you want to sort of dot it here and then put a distinct point where the intersection is, and then do the full thick line, because it kind of looks like then visually that the line is underneath this piece of paper, so to speak. All right. All right, so another one, I know we're working on our art skills here, but we're going to sketch two planes that intersect in a line. So this is a little trickier, but draw your parallelogram and then draw another parallelogram and just kind of, I don't know, keep one side of the plane behind it, maybe like this. And the intersection then, if you highlight it, looks something like that. So there's the intersection of two planes. And yeah, not the greatest picture, but it should work. I guess you could even dot this part up here if you wanted to make it look even more, I guess, realistic, to where you have like a horizontal piece of paper and then a vertical piece of paper. Yeah, but that's close enough. Highlight the intersection, and we know what you have here. Okay, the last example, example 5, is it says this diagram over here shows a molecule of hexafluoride. It's the most potent greenhouse gas in the world. That's interesting. And you know, it shows a picture of a electric utility. Apparently they use this for as an insulator, which is nice, not to have electricity jump to different places that you don't want it to go. However, unfortunately, when it leaks into the atmosphere, you've got a potent greenhouse gas causing warming. So that's something you want to try to avoid, I'm sure. But this is the molecule, and the question we're asked is a geometric question about name two different planes that contain line R. So here's line R right here, and you know, I'm going to try to sketch a plane here just so you can kind of visualize it, but I'm talking about the horizontal plane that we can name with like G, F, and E, for example. So plane G, F, E. That's the horizontal plane. You can name it like D, G, E if you prefer. Any three non-collinear points you can name that plane with, but that's the horizontal plane. All right. Now let's do a different plane that contains line R. So let's do, let me erase this. Okay, let's do, I guess, the vertical plane, if I can draw it at all. But this is that vertical plane that, I don't know if I drew it the best. Maybe I should have drew it more like this. But it's a vertical plane, AFC, for example, AFC. Now I know there's different ways to name that. So instead of AFC, you could name it ADF. Basically any 3 points on that plane, that vertical plane that contains line R. So, and realize that this can be a little hard to visualize. Those of you with maybe the higher visual spatial intelligences, maybe this comes easy to you. Other of you guys are gonna have to work on it. Do a bunch of different examples, but that's what the homework's for. So hopefully this is a little bit of a guide to get you started, short and sweet, and that way we can go over more questions as we do the homework. So I hope this helps, and we'll talk soon.